right, folks, high growth, low inflation, and Donald Trump's golden age. That's why the stock market had a record-breaking welcome mat yesterday. 1,500 points on the Dow. I believe it's one of the biggest single-day gains on record. And all that is the subject of the riff. So the day after the election, stocks went up 1,500 points, one of its best days in history. Kind of like saying, welcome home, President Trump. We are glad you're back. And the market is surely welcoming Mr. Trump's tax cut plans, along with his deregulation rollback of the $2 trillion of new regs put on by the Biden-Harris administration. And included in Mr. Trump's deregulation plan will be permitting reform to not only unlock the fossil fuel spigots and produce more liquid gold, but also open the door to pipelines and fracking and drilling in Alaska, New Mexico, the Gulf of Mexico, too. Plus reopening LNG exports, new permitting LNG modernization and terminals. Stock market welcome mat for Mr. Trump is also a vote of confidence that big government socialism is dead. Radical woke and climate policies are dead. Radical affirmative action, DEI policies, dead. All those left-wing obsessions were affecting both large and small businesses and their profits. They were affecting construction projects, broadband projects, even advanced technology companies, whether they're producing chips or quantum computing or AI, because you couldn't build anything unless you met various woke and DEI government mandates. Or think about the SEC spewing out insane climate reporting mandates for all businesses and their customers. It's like the securities regulators decided they really were the Weather Channel. Now, there's a good chance there'll be some bank deregulation, such as perhaps lower capital standards or at least no higher capital requirements for an industry which is mostly overcapitalized right now anyway. And then you have the Elon Musk phenomenon. You know he's the smartest guy on the planet, and lately he's become a political celebrity rock star, jumping full-time and to help Mr. Trump get reelected. Elon's already working with the Trump Transition Committee to pull out roughly $2 trillion of wasteful and unnecessary federal spending in order to slam the brakes on budget deficit spending and debt creation. Crazy programs like the COVID Act of 2021, or the various CHIPS and infrastructure bailout bills, or the misnamed Inflation Reduction Act, all sponsored by Democrats and passed with Kamala's tie-breaking vote. All that stuff should be subject to a thorough-going audit. And many of those programs have been authorized by the Democratic Congress, but the money hadn't even been spent, in part because the government is so inept, and in part because of the crazy DEI regulations. Anyway, unspent funds should be rescinded. And that would put a big clamp on federal spending. Meanwhile, the extended business tax cuts, and let's not forget a lower 15% corporate tax rate for domestic products, well, that's going to increase economic growth and job creation, which will move the GDP needle to maybe 3 to 4%. And that would be producing plenty of additional revenues from folks who have new incentives to work and invest. And all that will lower the budget deficits even more. Growth solves deficits and debt. Some on Wall Street continue to worry about how tariffs will be inflationary. But look, Mr. Trump in his first term slammed China with huge tariffs on the indictment of unfair trading practices and intellectual property theft. Yet there was virtually no inflation. Let me get this right. In his first term, Mr. Trump slashed taxes, curbed regulations, and protected America from unfair trading practices. And the overall consumer price index increased only 7% for 4 years. That was 1.4% at an annual rate. Biden-Harris, on the other hand, it did keep the Trump tariffs in place, but they spent their way into kingdom come. They produced record deficits and debt. They opened the floodgates to illegal immigration. And their CPI increased 21%. or roughly 6% at an annual rate. So I ask you folks, who's the inflationist? And as a final Trump policy, again and again, he repeats that he wants the dollar to remain the world's reserve currency. He's basically backing King Dollar. And that can never be inflationary. That's why the stock market put out a record-breaking welcome mat for Mr. Trump the day after his landslide election.